Amon is arguably the best villain in both The Legend of Korra and Avatar The Last Airbender universes. He was certainly my favorite of the villains in both series, which served to elicit great shock on my part when he met his end. I was so taken aback by his death that I honestly thought he didn't really die. The first time I watched the series through, I was literally just waiting for him to pop back up at some point. When Korra hallucinated Amon after Zahir poisoned her, I actually thought he was real for a second, and that he was the mastermind behind the Red Lotus plans. But of course, in my expectation for Amon to return at some point, I didn't fully appreciate his ending nor fully delve into the implications of his demise. At first glance, it is hard to fully consider the weight behind Tarlok's decision to explode the escape boat that he and his brother were on, so I'm going to walk through my thoughts concerning the action step by step. So let's start at the very beginning, with Amon's release of his brother Tarlok. Why does Amon do this when just a few episodes before, he takes his brother's bending away and imprisons him? Well, it's because Amon doesn't believe he can continue the equalist movement after being exposed as a fraud. Realizing the impossibility of accomplishing the goal that caused him to abandon his family as an adolescent, Amon wanted to pick up where things left off with his brother. Amon wanted to start a new life with Tarlok, just as he had desired to do so when he encouraged his brother to run away from Yakone with him. Then, when Amon leaves with his brother away from Republic City, he seems optimistic that both he and his brother can actually start fresh, away from the troubles of their past lives. My interpretation is that Amon actually believes that he and his brother can lead a new livelihood. However, as soon as his brother calls him Noatak, his real name, Amon recognizes that such a desire is not at all possible to carry out. When Amon suggests that he almost forgot the sound of his own name, I think he begins to remember his decision to leave his family, form the Equalists, and launch his attack against the Benders in a revolutionary movement. He begins to think of the life he led to assert his influence over Republic City, despite the fact that he rejected the impositions of his father. As soon as Amon hears his brother call him by his real name, I think he becomes privy to the notion that he can no longer go back to the way things were. He and his brother, despite what they may think, are both products of their father's hold. They both represent attempts to take control of Republic City through manipulation, except that Tarlok engages in actions within the system, and Amon does so outside of the system. They both walk down paths that are impossible to backtrack, as the experiences that Amon and his brother have undergone throughout their lives won't simply go away. Amon realizes that it is impossible to go back to the good old days, as his brother suggests. It is impossible to return to the days of Noatak when the Equalists already bore such a significant influence on Amon's life. Tarlok realizes that irreversible damage had occurred for both him and his brother, which is why he decides to go through with the explosion of them both. There are two common ideas about the actual action of the boat explosion. Some people think that Amon shed a tear because he was reminiscing about his times as the young Noatak and that he didn't know his brother was going to explode the boat. Some people suggest that bloodbenders have the ability to sense blood flow, so Amon knew that his brother was going to explode the boat and chose not to stop him because he wished to die. My interpretation of Amon's tear and the boat explosion are a combination of these two ideas. It's not entirely clear whether bloodbending enables users to sense movements of others, though it is heavily implied that at least some benders are able to do so. In the original Avatar The Last Airbender series, Hama seemed to have the ability to recognize that her prison guard was struggling, even though he wasn't making any noise, and she was facing in the opposite direction of him, leading her to pin him down even more. In The Legend of Korra, the ability to sense blood flow would help to explain Amon's extraordinary ability to dodge the attacks of his opponents, along with his ability to find Korra when she was hiding from him. As such, I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that Amon did know his brother was planning on killing them both. I think that the tear wasn't so much induced by Amon's memories of his childhood life as it was by his sadness that it would be impossible to return to those times as an adult. I believe the tear is a representation of his acceptance of death, which he knows is the only path forward for him and his brother as a result of their father's burdening influence on the lives that they would ultimately lead. The only thing left to consider is why Tarlok decided to kill himself and his brother. Obviously, he likely felt the same way as Amon in that there was no hope that they would be able to lead normal lives after doing the things that they have done, making a swift demise the most appealing option. However, I also think there are two utilitarian motives that motivated Tarlok which are oftentimes overlooked. First, it was noted by Yakone that his family possesses the strongest bloodline of waterbenders specializing in bloodbending that has ever existed in history. The last two members of that bloodline were Amon and Tarlok. I like to think that Tarlok, who hated bloodbending as a child and didn't even use it in his plot to take over Republic City until he absolutely needed to, was at least partially motivated to kill himself and his brother so that no one would ever have to experience such powerful bloodbending ever again. Second, I think that Tarlok wanted to end the cycle of despair. Should he and his brother have tried to lead normal lives, their past would inevitably come back to haunt them and would likely affect their new loved ones, exactly as occurred with Yakone. I believe that Tarlok wanted to save others from having to experience the same ordeals that he and his brother had to experience as a result of their father's past. Two brothers, two plans to achieve their goals, one tragedy. So there you have my interpretation of Amon's ending. While there are certainly problems with character writing in The Legend of Korra, I would argue that Amon's full character arc is one of the best written arcs in both series, despite his short existence in the universe. Let me know what you think about his ending and his place within the antagonists of The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe. See ya!